This week on Let's Talk Schools, we're going to explore the International Baccalaureate, or IB program. From rigorous academics to global perspectives, IB is preparing our students for success in college, careers, and beyond. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Schools. I'm Mike Looney, the host of the show, and have the good fortune of being the superintendent here in Fulton County. Today, we're going to be talking about IB, something that a lot of our families and students know all about, but we have two local experts. We have a leader of one of our buildings, and we have a coordinator from one of our buildings. So I'm going to ask you both to introduce yourselves, tell where you work, and talk a little bit about why you got into this IB way of life. So I'll start with you, Marissa.
Hi, well, I am Marissa Wilson, the very proud principal of Asa Philip Randolph Elementary School. And we got into the IB Primary Years program because our community really wanted it for our schools. We feed into Westlake High School, which is also an IB school. And so with that, it made sense in our community for our feeder schools to also join that journey. The Primary Years program is for 100% of our elementary school students. So our students pre-K through 5 had the experience of the IB Primary Years program.
Good deal. I can't wait to dig in further. And so, Frank, will you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, Frank Fortunato. I'm the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program Coordinator at Alpharetta High School. Our school's journey, it came about largely, again, families in our community who were very keen and interested in having this be an option for our students. At the high school level, the diploma program, though, is more selective than it is at the elementary level, largely because students opt in to pursue the diploma as opposed to it being a school-wide program that every student is connected to directly.
So there is a program for the elementary school level, there's a program for middle school level, and there's a program for high school level. Let's explore the elementary portion first. So 100% of the students in your school participate in this program type. What does that mean for everyday student at your school?
So for an everyday student at our school, they will experience transdisciplinary learning across the board. So all of our contents are kind of interrelated for our students, especially in the science and social studies area. So with science and social studies, our students are studying the world abroad. So IB, or the International Baccalaureate program, is really, really big about global mindedness for our students. So we're able to have our students incorporate what they're doing in literature with things that are going on in the world. So we do global events each week. Our students in the elementary or the PYP program are able to really have exposure to the international awareness through learning about different languages. So we have a Spanish teacher. Most elementary schools aren't offering world language, but part of the International Baccalaureate PYP program is that you do expose your students to world languages. So all of our students, kindergarten through 5th, take Spanish classes once a week. Our students are doing hands-on experiences similar to what you see in STEAM classes, but with a more global approach to it. We are incorporating reading, writing, math in every content area. So you can walk in and not necessarily know what block of the day you're in an IB Primary Years program school because everything is done transdisciplinary. So our students are exposed to ways to make connections with their content in the world and their experiences. So it gives them just a more rigorous approach to learning.
Right. So there's not a specific course or a specific block of time where it's IB time at the elementary level. It's just integrated across the entire curriculum.
You will see transdisciplinary learning no matter what block of the day you go into. Absolutely.
And one of the features, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to summarize what you said. One of the features at the elementary level in Fulton is that students are getting a world language course.
Absolutely. All of our students, kindergarten through 5th grade, and our world language at Randolph is Spanish. So they're all exposed to Spanish each week.
So are they getting, if I start as a kindergartner and I stay at A. Philip Randolph the entire time, will I end up with 5 years of Spanish coursework behind me?
You will end up having taken Spanish for 5 years, but you won't have credits as you would in like middle school or high school. But yes, you will have 5 years of Spanish coursework behind you as an IB PYP student or Primary Years program student.
That's amazing. So let's jump to the high school. So high school is a little bit different.
Yep.
In that I think there's two different types of IB programming at the high school.
Yeah, so the high school level, the one that we have would be the diploma, and that's the 11th and 12th grade. But then the middle years program actually bridges grades 6 through 10. So it sort of overlaps with the middle schools that offer it, like Ridgeview Middle School, for example. But then they would partner with Riverwood High School for the 9th and 10th grade years as well. So that creates it can be a little bit challenging for families to navigate when they're looking at those two different models in one high school, but they're essentially fulfilling two different roles. The middle years does help students transition out of the primary years towards the diploma. So there's a lot of similarities in the logistical structuring of a middle years program, but it also is geared towards moving students towards the academic and intellectual preparedness that they would need for the diploma program, which is structured a little bit more formally, largely because there are discrete classes then for each of the different subject areas. But it is still interdisciplinary in function as well. Students might be taking a literature class, but in IB, you're never really learning anything in isolation. It's all connected to all the other things that you're learning because it's built around concepts and skills generally that have some sort of real world application. And so really the biggest differences outside of logistics between primary, middle, and diploma really is each one is just geared to sort of the intellectual preparedness of the student for the age that they're at. Yet the fundamentals of them are still there. There's still the learner profile for elementary, for middle and high. There's still the same approaches to teaching and learning for elementary, middle, and high, but they're designed around then what is developmentally appropriate for that age of students.
I want to dig in a little bit more. So IB diploma program at the high school has discrete courses. So how many IB quote unquote courses does a student have to complete in order to be an IB diploma graduate?
So functionally, it's going to amount to about 7 different courses.
Okay.
In order to pursue the IB diploma, you have to complete 6 classes in different content areas. You have to do a language A, which would be our literature courses, language B, which are the language acquisition courses, individuals and societies, which is fancy IB speak for social studies, science, which is fancy IB speak for science. You got to take a math course. Ideally, every student is also going to take an arts course, though some students will go back and substitute in an extra science or social science class. Maybe because visual arts or music isn't their area of passion. In addition to that, students complete what we call the core, and each program has their equivalent of it. At the diploma level, there's 3 pieces to it. One is what we call creativity activity service. It's a little bit of the volunteering side of IB, but it's really built more around students getting experiences, doing things that will help them grow as a person and help their community grow. So it's more about a mindset shift than doing a bunch of extra things or logging volunteer hours. There's also the extended essay, which is a 3,000 to 4,000 word research paper that students do largely independently. It's almost like a mini thesis or dissertation. And the third piece of that is theory of knowledge, which makes up that 7th class. And that's one of the classes that, as I'm talking to IB students, how you really know when you're an IB kid, because that class gets you really excited. Because it's the class where on day one, you ask, how do we know what we know? And it just builds from there. At the high school level, that theory of knowledge helps to interweave all the other classes together. It's kind of the glue that holds the program together, because as I tell students, not only are we going to let you ask why in IB classes, we're going to teach you how to ask it better. And that's really where theory of knowledge comes in.
So what's the benefit to a student or to a family to say, I want to, not only do I want to graduate from Alpharetta High School, but I want to graduate with an IB diploma?
So there's kind of layers to that question. The one that a lot of high school kids are wanting to know is, how will this help me get into college? And the answer is, it will definitely. But IB, they're not 2 magic letters. A good student doing the IB diploma is going to have a lot of great opportunities, but IB is focused on student growth more than anything. That's the goal of it. The learner profile, there are 10 different characteristics, and that for us in sort of international baccalaureate, that's how we measure really, are we being successful? Knowledge is one of them. We want kids to know things, but so is reflection, and so is being balanced. So it's really about the holistic approach to a student, which, as a parent myself with 2 kids, whether they do IB or not, that's not really my concern, but these are the same things I want them to be in terms of the person they're going to grow into. And in IB, the whole structure of what we're doing is designed around helping students grow into those people. And generally through doing that, all of those other successes come along too. So the question that I generally will pose to students and to families is, is this who your student is? Is this how they're wired? Are they the student who will take a multiple choice test and come up with 8 different answer possibilities because they're thinking about the what if and the but what about and the why and the weird exception that most people don't think about, but they do? Well, they're probably going to love learning in IB. And if you love learning in IB, you're just going to do better and enjoy what you're doing.
Do you actually get any kind of benefit, like college credit for the IB courses?
Just like AP classes, IB classes can get you college credit. It varies from university to university. Some are very generous, where they'll just give you a lump sum of credits for completing the IB diploma. Others are very specific as to if you completed this class and scored this, that you're going to earn this credit then when it comes to a collegiate level course.
Marissa, let me ask you this question. I know when I went to teacher college, I didn't learn how to become an IB teacher. I just learned to become a teacher. So obviously there's additional training that teachers have to engage in and leaders in schools have to engage in to learn to do business this way. Can you talk a little bit about the process that you use with your instructors, with your teachers and faculty to get them prepared to teach with this new way of thinking?
Absolutely. So all of our staff has to be trained in the primary years program, making the primary years program happen. And so we do that over the course of years. If we have a staff member that's been with us for 2 or more years, they have to be trained in order for us to meet the requirements of the International Baccalaureate, but also for them to be able to actually teach the way the IB wants our kids instructed. So we do training. We do send them to trainings, or we do in-house trainings as well. We have a professional learner community meeting that we had once a month where we do IB PLCs within our school. We do vertical planning because IB works with units of inquiry. And inquiry is a big thing, as I think we were talking about it a moment ago, Frank was mentioning, just making students think outside the box. So in order to make students, especially elementary students, think, you have to be trained in how to pull those thoughts out of them. So we do a lot of inquiry training with our teachers. We do where our gifted teacher who looks at gifted strategies, we have her come in and do modeling for our teachers on how to use gifted strategies with our students, because that does increase critical thinking skills in our kids. So a lot of our training is centered around how do you really instruct kids where it's not as structured as the curriculum would like us to be, but it also makes sure we meet the standards and we're able to get kids to understand not only the standards, but the way to apply them in everyday life. We do PLCs with our teachers where they're actually taking the standards from the district and aligning them to what the units of inquiry are asking for. So we make sure that we're able to check both boxes when it comes to instruction for our students. So our teachers do get a lot of training, and we get a lot of modeling from our IB coordinator who comes in and makes sure that she's monitoring that the instruction is taking place the way it needs to. And we really are just honing in on how are we making students the owners of their learning, as well as developing these characteristics that we want students to have in our instructional setting.
Now, to become an IB school at the elementary or high school level, do you just raise your hand and say, hey, we want to do that? Or is there a certification process you got to go through?
There is a process. So when I became the principal of Randolph, they were already in the candidacy phase. So they had done the feasibility study, and IB said, yes, you're a good candidate school for this program. And so we were really working on all of the things that make an IB school move, like making sure our learner profiles were prevalent in our building, that we were acknowledging students for living out those characteristics. We were making sure that we had transdisciplinary blocks. Like I said, we can't teach one subject in isolation. It has to be everything. So those are the types of things that we had to do in order for IB to come in and say, you look like you're ready for us to evaluate your program and say you're ideal for an IB school. And so it was about a 3-year process from the feasibility study to actual candidacy. And so we were the first school in South Fulton to be authorized for the PYP program. And then Stonewall Tail came right after us. But it was a 3-year process even from start to authorization. And so every 5 years, they'll come back in, reevaluate our program, and let us know if we're able to be reauthorized again, as long as we're doing the things that the IB requires.
Wow, sounds pretty intense. So Frank, I have a question for you. So you have students that are in the IB diploma program, but do you also have students that say, you know, I just want to, I don't want to get a diploma in that, but I'm interested in this part or that part of IB. Can they just drop in for certain courses?
Yes, and we call those students course candidates. They are sitting in the classes, completing all of the things, all of the coursework, and then sitting for the exams at the end. For them, it's more elective in nature, though sometimes it does still fulfill a graduation requirement as well. Usually it's students who have very specific interests. For example, we offer IB literature and performance. We're one of the few schools worldwide that does. We actually crunched the numbers last year and realized that our teacher at Alpharetta High School teaches about 10% of the students in the entire world that take that course.
Oh, wow.
I know, it was pretty exciting, but they love the course because it's so different from any other kind of lit course they've ever taken. We have a very robust theater program, so a lot of the students who are in that program like taking that course because it allows them, in that case, to sort of blend together their love of performance and theater with literature while earning their graduation requirement and maybe even earning some college credit depending on the school they go to as well. But the accessibility of IB courses is still pretty high. That class has a high number of athletes who have never taken any sort of performance class before, but they wanted something different. They wanted something interesting. So they jumped in to take it right alongside kids who are going to be in the school play. And you see that across the board of a lot of the IB courses. There are many that just have a very unique focus that gives students an opportunity to do something different or in a different way. Maybe the full diploma wasn't going to work for them. Could be that they have other scholastic interests that they have, or the learning approach in IB across the board wasn't going to be the best fit for them versus something else. But we still want to allow them to engage where it makes sense and where they're excited about.
You both have said something that intrigued me, and that is the profile of the learner. So both of you or one of you are sharing, what are you talking about when you talk about the profile of the learner?
So IB has 10 learner profiles. The learner profiles are being balanced, an inquirer, knowledgeable. Help me if I miss some. There's so many.
There's 10 of them. Thinker.
Caring, thinker.
Reflective.
Yeah. Reflective, and reflection is really big in IB, and we can talk about that in a moment. Being reflective, and just those characteristics that really embody the total person. And with IB having such a global approach, these characteristics help our students to really understand that the world beyond their world is real and how their actions really impact the world abroad. And so it's really the characteristics that you want a person that you're involved with or around to have. You want somebody who's respectful and understands that your feelings matter and what I do has an impact on you. And so we use our learner profiles at Randolph for our student of the month. Every month we focus on a different learner profile. I do a read aloud book that aligns to that learner profile, and we have our conversations with our kids. How did the character in this book really show the learner profile of the month? What are you doing every day to match this learner profile? When you walk in the classrooms, teachers are referring to the learner profile through language or through learning. And so our kids really embody those characteristics of those qualities, and you can see them as they develop and are, exposed to them more. Their behaviors, they change, and they actually are becoming these amazing young people that are going to be amazing adults because they've really been taught to do some of these things. And I don't know, I know in high school, I have IB students in high school as well, my children. So I see those things in them as well. And they talk about it often. So
Yeah, the difference is really just developmental appropriateness. You're going to look at things like the learner profile through one lens at the primary years program, through another at the middle years program, and then in the diploma, it's still very much there, but we shift to things like we're talking about being balanced or reflective, but we're trying to help students develop that growth mindset of, okay, you weren't as successful maybe on this assignment or this task. Well, let's teach you how to take it apart so you can look at it yourself and say, okay, here's the things that worked. Here's the things that I want to keep doing on purpose because they worked. Here's the things that didn't work that I want to adjust and grow into. Right. But there's so many layers to how that plays out practically and how it's going to look. Some classes are going to lend themselves much more to, say, the knowledge learner profile characteristic or the thinking one. But things like creativity, activity, service, or some of those things that make up sort of the hub of all things IB help us to develop those other aspects of the characteristic as well. We want students to be principled and be able to articulate why they're doing what they're doing and how it aligns to sort of their core beliefs. But it really is more about equipping them with the how, not just giving them a whole list of here's what you need to know or what you need to do. It's more the how and the why behind what you're doing.
Right. Well, I want to thank you for giving us a peek behind the curtain on IB program. I know behind every program that's successful is good people. So thank you so much for leaning into this work. Thank y'all for tuning into another edition of Let's Talk Schools. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And now let's go around the district in 90 seconds. That's it for our show this week. Let's keep this conversation going. We'd love to hear from you on our social media platforms. Join us next time on Let's Talk Schools. And as always, thank you for watching.